Hi. Our topic today is how to be highly effective. We're focusing on mentality. Mentality is highly important. In fact, mentality is the most important thing. Like I always said, everybody has the ability, but not everybody has the mentality. Now, I was inspired to say this today by one incident that happened where I used to work. So at a point, we were not allowed to go with our access card. So for a long time, they decided to say, look, you have to keep your access card at the reception. But we've been doing that for a long time. After a time, the company implicitly told us that we should take our card home. But do you know that after all this while, we've been asked to take our card home, some people still prefer to keep their card at the reception. I say some people kept leaving their card at the reception despite the fact that they've been asked to go home with their card. So this is exactly how brainwashing and conditioning. Because initially, if you take your card home, when you come the next day, it will be deactivated. It caused some misery. It caused some discomfort. But after a time, we became used to taking our card home. So after this series of time, then we were implicitly asked to start taking our card home. So when we were asked to take our card home, people were still doing the old thing. The old thing was dropping their card at the reception, despite the fact they've been asked to take their card home. So this is what I call brainwashing and conditioning. So conditioning and brainwashing affects what we do, but we unconsciously don't understand this. So you see, there are series of stories, series of information, series of anecdotes that will teach you what mentality is all about, what the impact of mentality. So because if you've been brainwashed in the past or conditioned in the past, you remain like that. Nothing will ever change. You'll be afraid. You can't do anything. You'll be dwelling in doubt. Why? Because for a long time, you have been brainwashed and conditioned in such a way that you will not realize that you were doing the wrong thing, even though you've been asked to do the right thing. So we have series of stories I will now use to, illustrate what I'm doing. Because if you haven't got the mentality, you're not gonna do anything. You probably have the ability, you have the best ability, but you haven't got the mentality. You become paralyzed, you become inactive, you become passive. There's nothing you can do. You'll be frustrated, you wouldn't know what to do. So until you identify this problem and solve it, you won't be able to do something. I'll give you a story. You see, when we were growing up, we usually have a jar of palm wine. So in that jar of palm wine, inside it, you always have ants inside the jar of palm wine. Now, when the jar is locked or the cork is placed inside, to lock up the jar, the ants that were inside the jar will keep on trying to, bombing themselves. They keep on, hitting themselves on the cork, trying to escape. These things will happen hours, days. After this series of torments and brainwashing or conditioning, the ants, when the jar becomes open, or when you open the jar, the ants, they will continue. They will continue. When they get to a level where the cork was, they will come down. They go up again, they will come down. The ants will keep on making this random movement, trying to escape, but not realizing the cork, the cover of the jar has been removed long time ago. When they get to that point, they bounce back. When they get to that point, they bounce back because the ants were conditioned to believe that the cork was there, but the cork was removed long time ago. Are you understanding what I'm saying? The ants inside the jar believed that the cork was there. So when it gets to that level, it comes down. When it gets to that level, these ants will keep on making these random movements forever. This is the danger and the consequences of brainwashing and conditioning. If you are brainwashed and conditioned, you will be there, not knowing what to do, even though you've been freed, even though you've been asked to leave. Just like some of our colleagues, even though they've been asked to take their access card home, they still kept their access in the reception. What caused this is the mentality. So, if you are brainwashed, conditioned, you can't do anything. Even though you've been liberated, you'll be asked, go home. Even though you'll be asked, you are free, you are there. You see a dog. A dog was kept in a place. Then the dog was placed before a roast chicken or a roast meat, or some people call roasted meat. Now, this meat, when the dog wants to go and attack or eat the meat, the chain that was used on the dog, or the leash, or the lead, whatever you call it, will drag the dog back. Each time the dog wants to go and eat the meat, the chain will drag the dog back. This thing happened for 7 days, 21 days. So when the chain was removed from the dog and the meat was placed there, the dog could not muster courage, couldn't have the courage, couldn't have the confidence, couldn't have the urge to go and eat the meat, despite the fact that there was no chain. Now, the dog stayed in that situation, in that circumstance, and and died of starvation. Are you understanding what I'm saying now? Now, this dog was yanked back each time he wants to go and eat this meat. At a time, the dog got used to not going to eat the meat, even though he was hungry and dying of starvation. The meat was there, there was no chain. The dog remained there and died of starvation. This is this is how conditioning and brainwashing keep a lot of people in bondage, in slavery, in a situation of not knowing what to do. You see, until you understand what goes around in your mind, you will be where you are, not knowing what to do. Look at uranium. Uranium is a metal. You see, in its default position, it is unreactive. It's not reactive. Now, the uranium is at the heart of the earth. Uranium has a powerful quality. Its use is, it has many industrial use. So you could use it to do a lot of things. Now, uranium on its default position is not harmful. It doesn't react with anything. But as soon as you dig it up, refine it, it becomes one of the most reactive substance or metal in the universe. Now, at its default position, uranium will be there forever, not reacting, not radicalizing. This is a situation of majority of humans. Even though they have all the qualities, the best ability, but they remain in that position forever. This is our situation. This is the situation of human beings. This is the situation of people today. Because we've been conditioned and brainwashed to believe that we have nothing. And that thing has gone into our psyche. And then this brainwashing and condition paralyzed everybody. No longer will somebody take a risk. No longer will somebody embark on an adventure. So your mentality is what counts. So unless you understand this situation, this circumstance, these things that are here to control you, you're not going to do anything. So look at an object. An object, if you allow it where it was kept, it keeps on being there until something pushes it. This is the way we are. This is the way we operate. Even though you've been liberated, if you are freed, you still remain in bondage. You are still afraid. You haven't got the confidence. You haven't got the courage. You haven't got the self-esteem to move. Look at the dog. The dog had the capacity to go and eat the meat. It was dying of hunger, starving. The meat was there. There was no chain. There was no lead. There was no leash on the neck. Yet the dog stood there and died of starvation. This is a situation of people. This is our circumstance. We have all the resources, all the human capital, all the knowledge, all the wisdom with us. Yet we are dying of starvation. Yes, we are dying of hunger. Yet we are dying because we've had the mentality that that thing doesn't exist. After a long time of slavery, people became conditioned and brainwashed that they can't do anything. One moment. Conditioning is dangerous. Brainwashing is dangerous. So if you are brainwashed and conditioned, it leads you to start having slave mentality. You always think you are still in bondage. You will never come to realize that you've been freed a long time ago. Probably hundreds of years. You see, it has nothing to do with one generation alone. It has to do with subsequent generation. Because children of slaves or children of people who underwent slavery, even though they were not physically enslaved, the story is there. They could smell slavery. Even though it happened 400 years ago, even though it happened 200 years ago, 100 years ago, their children, their grandchildren will be smelling it. And that is the situation we are in today. We are smelling slavery, even though we are not enslaved. It has made us to develop a kind of slave mentality that we are asking the slave owners to come back and enslave us again. This is the situation of people today. Even though Africans have been freed, we are still coming to England, coming to France, coming to America to ask them and beg them to enslave us again. Just like some of my colleagues, they've been asked, go home with your card. Majority are still leaving their card in the reception, even though they've been told that you should go home with it. Even though we have had independence, we've been freed, we are still begging the Europeans and Americans to enslave us. We haven't got a clue on what to do. So it's a kind of slave mentality. Once you develop it, you're always afraid. You will believe that the oppression, the hatred, and the slavery is still there. You mentally, you don't realize that you've been freed. And that is what we are seeing everywhere. People still have slave mentality. You see, people, until they come to England, they cannot make use of their brain. Even though they're here, they can't use their brain anymore. Our leaders will leave Africa to come and beg the Europeans and Americans to pay tax. Even though they said, you have independence. You've had independence since more than 50-something years, getting to 60. Yet, you are begging these people, your masters, to come and live and pay tax in their own soil. It hasn't come to your understanding that you've been freed. That self-determination involves taking responsibility. We've had independence in 1960. Our leaders are still coming to London, Germany, America to attend, to have medical checkup. Our leaders are begging the Europeans in order to pay tax, pay Nigerian tax to them, pay homage to them. Even though you've been asked, go home, you are freed. See, it's a kind of slave mentality. Slave mentality is like you taking all the money in your country and they come and dump it in the Western world. You take 1 billion, 200 billion, 10 billion of your country's wealth and come and deposit it in Europe and America. Our people mentally, in fact, our people, what they do is you are asking them to come and enslave you again. Even though since 1960 we've had independence, Nigerians are coming to England to take permission. They are coming, the French-speaking countries are going to Paris to pay tax. They've asked you to go. You've been implicitly asked to leave, implicitly asked to have your independence and freedom. And you're still begging your master to come and become a slave again, to serve them. This is what we call slave mentality. This is what we call, you see, brainwashing and conditioning. Because we went through a kind of brainwashing and conditioning for a long time. You haven't got the mentality of self-determination. You've not realized that freedom entails taking responsibility. Why are you coming to England and Paris and Washington to ask them to enslave you again. You want to do your budgeting, you have to come here and do the budgeting. You leave your country and come to Europe and America to do your budgeting. You want to rule your people, you've been given the mandate, you still come to their past masters to ask them for permission. You still come there for you to have health services. Everything. I'm begging them to come and enslave you again. Again and again. Even though you have degree, you are still asking them to come and enslave you. Asking them to come and rule you. Asking them to come and show you governance. Is it not a shameful thing? After 50 years, we are still dumping our money in the Western world. After 50 years, we are still begging these people, our colonial masters, to come and enslave us again and take us as slaves. Because we've been brainwashed, conditioned not to think outside the box. We've been conditioned not to ask questions. We've been conditioned not to question the status quo. You've heard of the story of the lepers, the band of lepers. Before, the lepers are asked not to stay where other people stay. They are moved outside the city. These lepers, they settled there for years and years and years. They never knew that the people who asked them to stay outside cities left this. The city was destroyed and taken over for 40 years or something like that. The lepers were still settling there, not knowing that their oppressors had been defeated and overtaken. Not knowing that they've been liberated. So this is the situation of people today. You've been freed, but mentally you are not freed. Africans have been liberated, but mentally they've not freed themselves. That is why we see ourselves, unless you are accepted in the Western world, you can't do anything. We are always pressing for acceptance. We are always pressing for us to impress people to be accepted into human fold. This is dangerous. You see, you can have as much education you might have, you can have as much degree you have, but if you haven't got the mentality, you are still a slave. That is why mentality comes into what I'm discussing today. It is your mentality, how you think. What enslaves a person is his mentality, the way you think. Look at the ant. The ant thought that the cock, you look at it, look at that, assuming this is a jar. This is cocked up like this. Now, the ant that settles here will be going here up and down, up and down, up and down. And when he wants to escape, the cock, the lid will stop it from getting out. Now, when the lid is lifted off, do you know the ant will get to this level and come down? The guard will get, the ant will be mentally in bondage, not realizing that the lid has been taken away a long time ago. Our situation is like that. We've not realized that slavery is over. Now we are enslaving ourselves mentally. by refusing to take responsibility, by refusing to accept self-determination, the power to rule yourself, the power to take your own decision, the power to build your own roads, the power to construct your own houses, the power to clean your own house, the power to clean your own street. So every time what we're hearing is the story of a slavery, forever. We've been talking about story of a slavery forever. Because we don't want to leave the past alone. And what did they say? The most dangerous thing to live in the present with the past mentality. Always regurgitating the story of slavery, regurgitating the story of the slavery. And you keep on internalizing it, and passing it on to your great-grandchildren. Even though they didn't go to slavery, the smell of it is still around them. They have degree, they have PhD, but they don't know what to do with it. They have the best talent, they don't know what to do with it. They have money, they don't know what to do with it. It's still what happened in the Bible. The Israelites perished in the desert because they still had the Egypt in their mind. God told them, look, you're not going to take this slave mentality into Canaan. You are not going to take this slave mentality into the promised land. You got to leave your past. You got to separate yourself from the past and live a fresh life. The story of slavery and the mentality of slavery and the oppression and hatred they learned in Egypt, they were still carrying it in their mind in the desert. And God said, you're not going to take this mentality into promised land. The mentality of oppressing your own people, the mentality of enslaving your own people, the mentality of stealing your own money, the mentality of keeping your friends and your relatives and the other people in the country in hunger and slavery. That mentality is very dangerous. You have the whole wealth of a nation. One person or few people will take it, and not only taking it, they will take the money and then keep it in a foreign account in a foreign country. Then their own people will be lavishing in hunger, dying of hunger. They don't have anything to eat. They don't have anything to do.